What's going on, everyone? I hope we all had a fantastic day today in the stock market. As we can tell, the SPY gapped up really well this morning. We talked yesterday about Besant that was set to come out this morning with more updates on the US-China trade deal, and they definitely sparked a lot of positivity. So stick around. We'll be talking about that a lot throughout the video. As we can see on the heat map today, the SPY was overwhelmingly up into the green with a lot of insane price action, like Amazon over 8%, Tesla over 6%, Apple and Nvidia doing well also. So fantastic moves across the board, especially out of the Mag 7 stocks, which fuel the SPY the most. We're going to have a lot on the radar today. Trump also signed a pharma executive order, so keep that on the radar. And we're going to talk a lot about Kalshi and the recession chance for this year as well. But overall, as we can see, the SPY had a great day. We talked a lot about a lot of the big movers in the SPY, like Apple, Nvidia, and others. And whenever you get the largest weighted stocks in the S&P 500 gapping up and moving as much as they are, you're going to see some great price action. One slight negative today is that while the SPY gapped up, from open, it did go pretty flat for the first couple hours of trading, and then in the afternoon, roared right back and actually broke the pre-market high by just a little bit. So awesome movement all around. I really like that close at the end of the day here, but let's get more into detail onto what happened with this US-China deal. Now, overall, this is the deal that went into place where what they're doing is they're essentially taking their reciprocal tariffs and cutting them down for 90 days. So the reciprocal tariffs will be cut from 125% to 10%. Of course, the US still has 20% duties on China for fentanyl, which will remain in place. So overall tariffs on China stand at 30%. And as we know, some of the larger tariffs on China from the US hit even 145%. Trump did say that these will not be coming back, but if a deal doesn't get made within 90 days, they did say that the tariffs would still go up quite a bit, but nonetheless, this was a pretty good sign to see. We've been seeing I would say the US and China specifically going back and forth here quite a bit. You know, they call it tit for tat tariffs, back and forth tariffs, whatever you want to say. China will up theirs a little bit, we'll up ours a little bit. And then, of course, we got them so high that it got a little astronomical here. It actually got so astronomical that there was a record tariff revenue in April, which is pretty insane to say. So obviously before this de-escalation in April, there was a 130% year-over-year increase on the tariff revenue. They recorded $16 billion and marking a $9 billion increase from the same month a year before. And we can see on this chart here just how substantial the tariff revenue was in April there. So definitely a very big piece of information, I thought. Nonetheless, there's still a lot of pressure to get these tariffs down and to get them eliminated nonetheless. And as we can tell, the market definitely did not love, like, let's say, the news with the tariffs going up. Overall, that's kind of what's been sending the market down recently. But in the very, very short term, we've been seeing a little bit of forgiveness with the tariff situation. You know, we talked about it a lot ever since Wednesday, April 9th. We've been seeing sentiment start to shift a little bit. You know, Trump's backing off all the harsh rhetoric, and, you know, we're seeing a lot better rhetoric and deals starting to get made. We had the UK news last week. Now we have this China news with these 90-day reciprocal pauses this week, which is going to be a big deal. So, of course, this is going to be an ongoing situation. Keep this on the radar, as things, I'm sure, will not be slowing down anytime soon. And especially because Trump's going to be talking to Xi this week, potentially. So this is pretty hilarious. Of course, as we talked about, there's been these meetings between people with China and then Besant, of course. But Trump's going to be talking to Xi this week. He said maybe at the end of the week. So, you know, that's why I was kind of hesitant there. It's not like it's a super set in stone thing, but Trump did say maybe at the end of the week here. So there might even be even more headlines to come from this situation, so definitely keep it on the radar. Trump did say that the most important thing to come from this was that China will open up to U.S. businesses, as we know, and we've been hearing a lot anyways over the past few months. And you know, honestly, even since Trump was president the last time, nonetheless, there's been a lot of talk about China not really allowing U.S. businesses to necessarily sell items in China. Of course, China makes a lot of items themselves. They probably don't necessarily need ours, but Trump, at the end of the day, is saying that they agreed to open And of course, that's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of things that can be done from this, whether it's food or technology products, etc. It looks like there will be some more stuff going on with U.S. businesses and China. But as we talked about, the market definitely loved this, rising up 3.3%. And there was some amazing price action with the SPY. I thought it was awfully advantageous and extremely bullish here to see the SPY close so high and just have such great pressure on its high of day around close. If we would have rejected off of this high of day and double topped and closed under 580, I would have a lot different outlook into tomorrow. But I'm definitely pretty hyped up about this current price action in the short term. Of course, anything can happen. There can always be pullbacks, kind of like what happened at open today. A lot of traders got surprised by that. Let's just say into tomorrow, we have a similar gap up situation. That's something to be wary of. If we do end up seeing a bit of a pullback like this, that is just something to keep on the radar. Even the first few opening candles were kind of rough today. But going to where the real money was flowing today, going to the heat map, a lot of the Mag 7 stocks exploded. Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, Apple, Meta, Google, all up in extreme ways, with Nvidia and Amazon and Apple, in my opinion, really leading the way here. I thought Nvidia was one of the best moving stocks today. I know it was up 5.44%, where some other ones like Amazon closed up a little bit higher. Even Apple closed up slightly higher than that. But something that I like even better with Nvidia's price action is how it closed up right around its high of day and even broke its pre-market high around the end of day here. I'm definitely going to be watching these chip stocks to the upside. Nvidia had a pretty good move. Even this morning, there was just so many gap ups, like MU, Qualcomm. There were lots of chip stocks that were moving early on today. AMD had a great early move and pre-market move, but of course, when the market opened, it dipped back pretty hard. But that just goes to show how Nvidia kind of closed higher than a lot of the others. A lot of those competitors dipped down a little bit at the end of the day and midday, where Nvidia really held higher. So this is going to be one that's on watch for tomorrow quite a bit. As I look at the daily chart, there is major resistance here around 122 to 123. This has been an area where Nvidia has double topped and then rejected down quite a bit in the past. Coming off of the last touch of this resistance, Nvidia ended up dropping around 29 to 30%. That is quite the pullback there. So I'm definitely not saying that's going to happen again here. And again, it's closing just above that resistance at the high of day. So watch this into tomorrow. There could be some good price action if we continue to see these bulls come in a crazy way. But we're not done with the Trump news yet. There was still some more news today where he signed an executive order to get drug prices down, which sounds great on paper. Hopefully Trump can get this to happen here. Pretty much what he talked about is he wants to renew an effort known as the most favored nation policy. So I think it's very interesting here. Of course, what goes on is there's a lot of countries that pay a lot less for drugs than the U.S. does, and a lot of those costs get kind of thrown on to the United States. Trump did sign this executive order today that's aimed to slash these drug prices. At the end of the day, I was really looking at some of these bigger drug makers today, like Merck, Pfizer, and even some healthcare, we'll say insurance companies like UNH, for example. MRK really bucked this off, ended up moving quite higher as the day went on, up 5.87%. Pfizer had a pretty good day too. I did notice that United Healthcare, though, did have some shakiness, and while these talks were going on, they had some pretty crazy intraday candles there as well. But nonetheless, I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on Pfizer and all of these big healthcare stocks. I know a lot of these have actually been dipping a lot in the short term. So a lot of people might say well, Tom, doesn't this hurt these healthcare companies? And at the end of the day, Trump said that it might not really hurt them. He said that really what's going to happen is that they're going to kind of redistribute their money, we'll say, or their revenue from different countries. Obviously, if the U.S. is paying 10 times more than London, maybe, or not London, I should have said the U.K., then at the end of the day, we might end up, let's say, paying a little bit less, where the U.K. pays a little bit more, but of course, other countries as well. That's kind of how it was explained. At the end of the day, keep your eyes on the healthcare stocks. This could be priced in a little bit, but it's definitely something to still look out for. Now, I know one thing that's been worrying traders over the past, I would say, especially the past 5 months since 2025 started, is the chances of a recession. And it looks like right now the chances are actually falling down quite a bit, which is awesome to see. If we go to like the 1 month chart here for these chances of a recession, we can see that over the past couple weeks, as we started to see a lot of optimism and positivity come in with some of these trade deals and just trade talks in general, we've seen the chance of a recession drop quite a bit, hitting around 38 to 39% today. I was watching it get pretty low down here. So it looks like the chances of a recession now are under 50% again. I guess all the doomsayers changed their mind in the short term, or I guess, but either way, this is what the market's pricing in. I found it to be very interesting. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Is there still going to be a recession this year? Will these trade deals start to kick things off for some more buying? Let me know what you think. I know that there's a lot of controversy revolving around this entire situation with the trade deals and the recession, and of course, everything Trump is doing. So I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say in the comments below. But of course, there's still a lot of earnings in the short term. Looking at the earnings calendar for tomorrow, there are some pretty big stocks. JD, SE, in pre-market. Those are two pretty big ones. JD, of course, being a China stock. Oklo, very popular growth stock in the short term, reporting in after hours tomorrow. On Wednesday, we have Cisco. On Thursday, we have Baba, Walmart, AMAT, and even Take-Two with the Grand Theft Auto 6 news recently. So those will be some very, very interesting stocks here. Of course, we do have the economic schedule this week, which is definitely loaded. Of course, we have the CPI inflation data coming out tomorrow before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. This is going to be extremely, extremely influential. If you guys watch anything tomorrow morning or anything for this week, it needs to be the inflation data 1 hour before the market opens tomorrow. If we end up seeing inflation have a huge jump, this could have huge implications on this nice green move that we had today. Of course, the market was overwhelmingly bullish today. You know, we look at the SPY, it gapped up, it even had that nice end of day push up into the close. But if we end up seeing the inflation data come in hotter than expected, definitely be ready for a potential pullback. Now, again, this is 1 hour before the market opens, so be ready for that. There could be some pre-market action coming in tomorrow. But looking at the inflation data just a little bit closer here, if we go to like a chart of the actual inflation data, we can see that inflation has actually been dropping a lot. I know that a lot of people have had a lot of economic worry regarding inflation recently. You know, honestly, since the beginning of 2025, inflation was sitting around 3% on the year-over-year rate. It's now down around 2.4%. We can see that the forecast is sitting around 2.5% and the consensus for 2.4% tomorrow. So in reality, if we see like a huge move above like 2.4, 2.5%, that's where I'm going to get a bit worried. But I definitely wanted to show you guys this inflation chart just to show some context here that, you know, we're kind of sitting around recent lows with inflation. So at the end of the day, maybe a slight uptick wouldn't be that surprising for the market. And either way, keep your eyes on the forecast, and this could be a crazy move coming in tomorrow morning. But it is time for some SPY levels and analysis here. Going over to the SPY today, it definitely had that nice gap up. As we can see, there's a lot of levels on the chart. As SPY moves and gaps up in crazy ways, it breaks a lot of key levels. For tomorrow, I really like 570 and 572 as some key areas of support if the SPY starts to really pull back. This is actually right around the low of pre-market today, where pre-market opened up, and 570 is a nice whole dollar psychological level as well. So if we end up, like, let's just say pulling back, 570 will definitely be one area I keep in mind. I'm also going to be watching 580 and 578. These two areas have had a lot of price action today as well. Even in pre-market, multiple bounces there. As far as resistance, 584.50 to 585 is definitely crucial. So if that breaks, then I'll be watching for 590 overhead. 590 overhead is the most influential resistance that I'm seeing in the short term. If we go to an hourly chart of the SPY and we go back a little bit to, let's just say, February of this year, and then even the end of January, we can see there was this very nice double bottom on the SPY that was right at that key $590 support at the time. Now that we're under there, that's acting as resistance. So if SPY starts to pop off the next couple trading days, that 590 resistance is definitely something that I'm going to be keeping in mind for as we start to rise. And then here's where we see 584 and 585 with its crucial hits as well. So with the SPY in the short term, there's actually been a lot of positivity. As we can tell, it's been on an amazing uptrend from its recent low. Again, there was that pullback at open today. If we do see a huge gap up or something along those lines, just be a little bit wary of some shaky intraday price action. Of course, there's always scalping opportunities intraday, but for those guys that like to just buy calls and hold it all day long, it might not be the best strategy. You know, it's always keep adapting out there. And of course, today at open, I'm sure there was a lot of people that actually adapted into puts and succeeded early on today. But how can we not go forward without looking at some plays for tomorrow? With my first setup, I'm actually looking at ticker symbol NVDA to the upside. I know we talked about this one a lot today, but I wanted to even go over to the Bookmap and show you guys some more crucial levels coming up in the short term. As we can see on the NVIDIA Bookmap, at the end of the day today, there was 1.2 million shares stacked up at 125. There's also 1.4 million shares stacked up at 130. And there was also around 500,000 shares stacked up around 123. So if we start to see a really good break to the upside tomorrow, definitely keep your eyes on 125. With 1.2 million shares there, that has to be one area that we keep on the radar. Of course, 130 with 1.4 million shares is still on the radar as well. If NVIDIA starts really ripping past 125, that would be the next major resistance that I look for in the short term. But NVIDIA has a lot of good price action. It's impacting the SPY a lot. It's causing a lot of crazy volatility here in the short term. So keep your eyes on those options. There can be some extremely fun scalping opportunities. With my next setup, I'm looking at Meta for a $640 breakout play. Meta closed up very high today, 7.92%. If we go to the heat map, Meta was probably one of the better stocks on the entire heat map today. 7.92% beat out Nvidia, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Google. It only didn't beat Amazon and just a couple others on here like AMAT. But at the end of the day, Meta, what a fantastic run, 7.92%. If it can break that key 640 resistance, keep watching it to the upside. As we can see on the daily chart, Meta is starting to recover up in an extremely awesome way, and it's even breaking above some pretty key resistance in the short term, close to 634 to 635 as well. So keep it on the radar for tomorrow. But now it's time for tomorrow's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have ticker symbol MSTR to the downside. I know, kind of surprising, right? It's kind of straddling $400. So if we end up seeing a $400 breakdown with MSTR, then continue watching it to the downside. Even with all the positivity today, it only closed down 2.68%. So definitely a pretty bad move compared to, let's say, the overall market and the majority of stocks out there. So if we break under 400, I'll be watching MSTR to the downside. With the next play, looking at CCL to the upside, one of the better stocks today, closing up 9.6%. If it breaks out above 2240, then keep watching this one to the upside. And with the third and final play, we're looking at Shopify. If Shopify can move out and above 106.30, then go ahead and watch them up as well. It's right around that opening candle today. It was kind of a strange opening candle for Shopify. They did close up pretty high and close to this, though. So if they're able to break 106.30, then watch Shopify to the upside as well. Of course, these are momentum plays. They're meant to be more like scalps. They're not swing trades. They're not something you should buy and hold for the long term. They're not even anything that you should just buy and blindly hold all day. You guys should have a plan going into this. Of course, have stop losses, have target levels in mind, maybe look at support and resistance, look at big areas on the stock tomorrow if it gaps up or gaps down. For example, if we gap up and out, like let's say with Shopify, it gaps up to like 110 tomorrow morning, maybe watch for 106.30 to act as some support on a pullback, maybe for a dip buy or something along those lines. Of course, there's lots of different strategies out there, but definitely have a plan and keep stop losses in place and continue to adapt. But now it is time for our big money play today. And this one is pretty darn big, too. It's a $4.9 million play on Nike. Yes, the big money put $4.9 million into the Nike 65 strike calls that expire on March 20th of 2026. So this actually expires in quite a long time. So at the end of the day, this is going to be more of a longer term big money play, but in the short term, Nike is having some great action to the upside. 7.34% is awesome. It's moving up with the China tariffs today. Of course, shoe companies like Nike, Adidas, Skechers, companies like that, they could do pretty well from some tariffs coming down quite a bit. So I know that they even sent Trump some letters and things along those lines. So it sounds pretty good for Nike here, but they were up 7.3% today, gapped up very well. This is one of the larger big money plays, like I said, with $4.9 million going into this one. It is quite hefty. Like I said, though, it's a longer term play. You have to be willing to give this one the time it needs. I'm sure that they're going to hold this for a few months or something along those lines. And let's be honest here. If we zoom out on Nike's chart, Nike is extremely oversold over the past couple of years. If we start to see Nike truly recover here, it doesn't even have to, let's say, get all the way back up towards its all-time high or anything along those lines. If we even just get a slight pop back up, like maybe some shorts covering, something along those lines, we get towards a recent resistance around $90, that'll be a nice 45% pop for Nike, which is pretty crazy to say. Nike has definitely been in downfall a lot, so keep it on the radar. That is quite the large big money play here. But with the big money play out of the way, it is time for our member of the day, and today it is Dolphin. Let's go, Dolphin. What a play you had on Tesla, up $2,500 today. Said with help, motivation, and support from the community here, $7,000 on Tesla for the month. I may just keep trading Tesla. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Hey, I agree. If you have a couple tickers that you prefer and you do well with, definitely stick with those if that's where the money is flowing for you. But love to see it, Dolphin. And honestly, congrats to everybody in the Profits channel today. There were so many fantastic moves and breakouts, and there was obviously a lot of people in the StockedUp community taking advantage of that. So many plays, up over $1,000. Of course, there's a lot of smaller ones mixed in too, but gosh, guys, today was one of the better days in a while. So congrats to everybody who hit off of all the great movement today. And hey, if you didn't hit, consider going back, watching some of the plays from today, and then maybe adapting a little bit into tomorrow. And if you're not yet subscribed yet, definitely destroy that subscribe button. In every single video, we try to give you all the big tariff updates, all the news you might not have ever seen, the new big money plays in each one, even some cool charts like Kalshi and other things along those lines. So destroy that subscribe button. Other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And hey, let's bring in the profits tomorrow.